For you, just philosophically, when you're recruiting guys, or I guess just looking at this roster as it is, are there specific players for specific spots on this roster and this lineup, or do you just see a bunch of athletes and you kind of have to figure out where you're going to put them right now?
Well, there's a little bit of both. You know the history of some of the guys and where they've played. You know the capabilities of some of the arms, and I'm learning more about the stuff every day. And now that we've gotten into the scrimmages, it's a little more clear who's capable of what. I'm not interested in defining roles right now. I'm really not interested in trying to solidify any positions. I just want to feel how they look and sense how they handle different things as they move around. We have infielders that clearly are capable. Now, what suits their skill set and our team to be the most efficient, I don't know that yet. So I'm working through that, and every one of these days we're out here as a team, I learn a little bit more. And thank goodness my staff's in there and they're running our meeting today, and having that sort of traction so that the players get the message clearly from every member of the coaching staff is also very important. As we learn them, they're learning us, and I think everybody's starting to find the same page of that book.
Are you telling your guys just to go find you baseball players, or are you telling them, hey, we need a third baseman, find me a third baseman, I need a first baseman?
Well, I guess we look at it as the elite arms surrounded by athletic defensive players gives you a chance to win every game. And you may not do that, but it gives you a chance. And then offensively, I think if you're athletic around the field, that allows for some offensive variety and some explosiveness and some guys that can run. So we really start on the field. I'm not saying we're trying to plug guys into positions, but when you know there's a really good infielder that plays shortstop, you feel like that athlete could also go to second base. He could go to third. Maybe if he really runs, he could end up in center field. So the athleticism on the field is really the foundation, and we need to have guys on the bump that can pitch at an elite level and can strike people out and command the ball and field their position. So that's really where it starts.
What's the feedback you've gotten from you guys after a few days of practice, just of how they go about doing it, how you guys are operating?
Well, the first few days, the tempo, I think, with which we operate was new. And you combine that with new information and new language and new verbiage and new tactics of how you do some of the team fundamentals, it's a lot. As we got to day 3, I saw them start to really settle. And once we got to day 4 and 5, I felt like they had a better handle on things. We had done group work for essentially a month leading up to this, in part because of the field construction, which is going to help everybody. And the bullpen down there is going to help everybody. So that fundamental time of trying to incorporate and introduce some of the things that we were going to do once we get out as a team, that helped us. But it still takes a few days, and I think the tempo for me is not as fast as it is to 39 guys that haven't heard the verbiage and the language in a team setting yet. So they've been great, they've been eager, and they've really processed it and learned the details of what we're doing a little bit better every day. And today will be a good test. We haven't really extended and done tandem relays. And if you're going to do some of these things right, it takes 5 or 6 guys to be in the right position to handle it properly if you're going to execute some of these team fundamentals. And today's will be a challenge, and it'll be new. But their growth and ability to grasp it and go apply it, it's been really fun to see them do that. And today will be another test.
Talked about kind of how things had to be a little different because of the state of the field. I guess what's been your role in all this, and how excited are you? Maybe not the finished product long term, but the state of the field right now.
Well, the new sod was underway when I got here, so this is the same sod that football stadium has, football practice field. I think the softball and soccer all got the sod. Just because of the nature of the seasons, we logically were the last ones to get it, so that sod is starting to really take. The introduction of a little more artificial turf, and most notably at the plate, it reduces the maintenance. And you guys walked out on that turf at home plate, it feels like you're on a dirt surface. So you've watched the evolution of the artificial turf in the last 10 or 15 years. It's fantastic. And those batter's box lines are down, the foul lines will be down, except for obviously the clay, 24/7. So as we get into this a little further, we'll have the bunting set up before practice, and the guys can come bunt and see everything that's going on. The companies that did it, Chip and I really meshed our time and efforts into making sure those companies understood what we wanted and how we wanted this thing to play and look, and it was fun. And I've gone through similar projects at other schools, and we needed this, and it helped, and our facility staff was very gracious in allowing us to have some flexibility to get this thing the way we wanted it. And Adam Ham and Stuart Pearson, the guys, and Michael been very supportive, and allowing me to put my stamp on the playing surface and the dugouts and the cages and the pen. It's going to help everybody.
Coach, part of that, you talk about just making it easier for the guys as a whole, to make more things easier for them. How big is that? How important is that?
The most important thing is their development. They come here to be championship college players, and they want to be major league players, just like the guys across the street there. They want to be NFL football players. That's part of it at this level. If they don't have that vision, then they're probably at the wrong level. So giving them the chance to have a functional bullpen and all of that space we created that needed to be refreshed, that new turf is going to help them. It gets them off the field so those guys can go do their mobility stuff, their arm care, they can throw. They're not in a very shallow right field trying to do their flat ground pitching work and their pitch development stuff. It can be done off the playing surface. That's huge. The batting cages, we just touched those up. I told you about this surface and how efficient it is for them. You can come take ground balls, and every hop off the front of that plate is going to be the same. You're not going to get any balls that kind of catapult way up in the air anymore. There's no maintenance. So I think this is better. The dugouts, I know this is a minor thing, but having 3 entry points to the dugout, it just allows for ease of transition on and off the field, and I hope they like it. Time will tell. We've only been out here for a few days, but so far it's been refreshing, and I think they've enjoyed the efficiency of what's going on.
Making the transition here with your entire staff coming with you from Notre Dame, how much does that put you ahead of schedule in the sense of everybody that works with you knows exactly how you operate and how things are done?
Yeah, when we went through this, I guess would have been 4 falls ago now, I was the only one that knew what I wanted to do, and when you have 5 other people that know that, just the information to the players, it's so much easier for them to hear it. So when we go have our stations, and we're not reinventing the game, but I think what we do is a little complicated at times in the cage. The drills, the number of pitches, the number of swings, how we set up the machines, the angles of the machine, the height, the speed, the percentage of velocity. We run the machines at 90% of the velocity of an actual pitch ball. We do it from 54 feet, which matches the actual release of a standard pitcher. So I don't have to explain that anymore. Our guys know exactly what we're doing, so when I put a practice plan together, I can hand 6 copies out, and those guys know exactly what's going on. Then they can relay that information to the players, and it's great. And these are hard transitions, much easier when you have a connected staff that's been through it together and that has had some success. And we fine-tune things. There will be things that I'll discover here that we may need to tweak. This stuff isn't etched in stone, but you have a foundation of principles that worked for you in multiple programs, and then you instill that here and make any adjustments as you roll through it.
This time on the field, just how important is it to the communication side of things and how players work together and how pitchers and catchers work together?
We learn something every day, Brett. The technology now with the wristband to call pitches where there's no mystery of is somebody actually figuring out what you're throwing. We're eliminating that. But even that communication is important. The signs, you've watched some of the scrimmages, and the way we give signs, I can be anywhere on the field, and quite frankly, I want to be. It makes them kind of keep their eyes up and always look for the signs. And it's easy when you're standing in a spot in the dugout, but the communication with the defensive team as I walk around, and then giving the signs to the offensive group and the base runners, it's important. And we've spent some time learning those wristbands. If I handed you the offensive wristband, you would think we're trying to launch rockets, and it's not complicated. When you look at it, it would be a little confusing, but once they had a couple exams, we had like written tests on these signs, they figured it out, and we rolled right out, and we've just given them the wristbands and they've done it. The fly ball communication, the cutoff and relay communication, the first and third communication, the bunt defense, things that require really more than 1 or 2 guys to know it for it to function, that's my biggest concern. And they've handled it really well. Our communication is different than what they were using previously, and that's fine. The more you stay on them, the more they grasp it, the more they learn, and it just becomes easy. I think watching day 1 or 2, even though we had done this in the IPF and had talked about it, when everybody's out here on this field and the balls are flying around, it's got a different sense of urgency than it does when you're in the IPF and there's a small little group of guys doing it. So we're getting there. We're not a finished product, but the communication has come a long way, and they've been super receptive to learning like our way of doing it.
Have you always been as detail oriented as you are, or is that something that you evolved as you had different coaching stops and experiences?
I would say I've always been fairly detailed with what I'm doing. I will say that at Notre Dame, when you share an indoor facility with 5 other teams, you have such a limited amount of space and time. It probably heightened my sense of monitoring the time and the details of what you plan, because when our time was up in the indoor facility, and we didn't step outside till we played down here, you had to be organized, because when the time expired, your practice was over. It didn't matter if you got through your practice or not. The lacrosse team was on the field and your time was up. So that probably took a detail guy and made him like hyper detailed, because quite frankly, you can't run out of time, because you've got pitchers that have to throw, you have at bats that you need, you have repetitions that you have to check the boxes in. And I think the experience at Notre Dame probably made me even more detailed and probably better.
You mentioned that you're not defining positions right now. So how do you kind of approach that in practice settings and then maybe against Kennesaw State?
I approach it in a way that really allows me to make sure I see guys play any position I could conceptualize that they might play. I want to see them play that now. And the same thing at Kennesaw State. I'm not going to put people in crazy spots, but I want to see if some of the infielders can slide to the other half of the field. Like, can a third baseman move to second? Does one of the second basemen profile better at short or third? I need to see it, and I need to see it more than one day. The same thing with the outfielders. And our field has very unique dimensions. Left field is big, left center field is huge, and obviously right center field is really short. So you need to have the flexibility for guys to understand what it's like if somebody has to go from right field to left, or if somebody had to go from center field to right field. We need to be comfortable, especially in our ballpark, because of the nuances of the size of it. And then when you go on the road, it's totally different. You might have the opposite situation. NC State's a little shorter in left, but right center field plays big. You go to Notre Dame, those gaps play huge. So just try to move guys around, and then eventually we'll solidify a little bit more about who belongs where, but that is so far down the road for me. I'm just trying to get guys out there and get them comfortable in various spots, and then we'll figure it out later. It's October, it's not February, and I need to take advantage of the flexibility of the time we have.
I know Coach Restano had been at Notre Dame for quite a while before you got there. I guess, what was the conversation of bringing him here? How receptive was he to that? I know he had some kind of family ties there. And what impresses you about him as a pitching coach?
He's dynamic. And when those guys go down there, you know that they're in very good hands. Their health and safety is of the utmost concern on his mind every day. He does a great job of making sure we're doing what we need to do, but we're not overextending these guys, especially as they get into the live outings. He had a chance to be the head coach at Notre Dame, and I gave him that opportunity, and I told the administration here he has earned that right, and he's going to see that process through, and if that process doesn't work out with him as the head coach, then he's going to be the pitching coach at Florida State. And I'm thrilled that it worked out for Florida State, and obviously I know he would have been excited to be there, but this gives him a chance to experience a whole different landscape. His wife is a phenomenal softball coach, one of the best in the country. At a program in Notre Dame, they've been competitive in 23 straight regionals, I believe. So with 2 young kids, I think CJ's almost 3 and Jane is, I guess, 7 now, that gives Lizzie a chance to catch her breath and be mom for a little while. And her coaching career is probably not over, but it gives her a chance to spend time with the young kids, and he gets to concentrate on being the pitching coach at Florida State. And this environment and the fans and the atmosphere, that's what he kept talking about. He's like, Coach, every time I go to Hauser Stadium, the fans and K-Time and the Section B, he looked at it from the perspective of being the other dugout, and he relished the opportunities to be here so much that we had a chance to actually put on the garnet and gold. He's thrilled.
Just through the first few days of live ABs, just how impressive you've been with the freshman bats.
We have some good freshman bats. We do. I like what I see out of the young guys. I do. Now, a consistent basis and matching up when you start to deal with experienced guys out of the bullpen that are matched up, we have some work to do. I do like what I've seen out of the guys, and I like the fact that, like Ross Diamas has had some good at-bats from the left side. We need to figure out a way to get some left-handed bats in the lineup. I have a concern about that right now. Tibbs has been injured, coming off his injury last year, so he's not 100% yet. We just need some left-handed bats. But we do, Cam Smith and Rank, and Carry On's a good player, and I do like what Ross has done. The Tripster, Lance Triple, he's had a nice run of at-bats, hit some balls hard, and he can jump behind the plate and play the outfield. Jordan Taylor in center field, he's had some good at-bats and runs well, and Jordan Williams runs well and switch hitter. So I like some of the pieces. I haven't seen the consistency maybe out of the at-bat that I would like to see. I think it's coming. On the other side, I feel like our older arms are ways ahead of some of the young guys, and that's probably natural. But some of the younger arms have to find ways to separate and create secondary pitches that have a chance to be weapons. And I think if you watch some of the scrimmages, that's what they're learning right now. If you don't throw above average secondary pitches in the zone and the same type secondary pitch out of the zone to try to finish hitters, it's hard to really finish off and punch out hitters, whether they're freshmen or older. So I think the young arms are learning on the fly. I think the young bats are doing a good job. I think the younger position players, the same young bats have to learn how important the defensive part of this is in getting a good jump on every fly ball that's hit, playing the ball off the wall properly, having a sense of the timing and the pace of the play as an infielder, handling this caliber stuff behind the plate as a young catcher when you haven't seen Crowell and Montgomery and Barrett and those type of secondary pitches. So everybody's learning, and some are learning the hard way right now, but I do love the process and watching them grow.
Doug was someone who didn't throw the last 2 years after Tommy
Yeah.
John. Just how good was it to see him get on the mound the other day in live action?
It was great. And, the guy's been, 2 years, I guess, since he's been on the mound. So that's hard. It's hard to walk down there and rehab and have the trainer with you 24/7. And you go from hoping I feel okay mode to, all right, now I've got to go out here and compete and hope that I get results. You're going from am I okay mode to, hey, I'm okay. What is it like now to see somebody standing up there with the bat in the box and I've got to try to compete and get people out? So I think it was great. It's all that rehab and all that work kind of culminates with I'm on the mound and it's 93, 94, 95, and I've got that power breaking ball that I had when I was down in the bullpen a couple weeks ago. So I think he was relieved, excited, and it was great to see. It's explosive. Now he's got to continue to develop the command of the fastball. It will come, but clearly dynamic.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah.